Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to another episode of After Dark podcast in the sack with JT. Welcome back to the sack, guys. How's everybody doing? Have a little bit of a cold, but I am pushing through. It's nothing bad at all. So at least I'm able to still do this, and I'm gonna have a few, in fact, three. Three is in fact the number of reviews out for a few more recent movies from this year. So I will have those out tomorrow, most likely. But this is a movie I've wanted to talk about since I started the channel. Now, I know so many people who absolutely adore this movie. I know so many people who are mixed on it. I know so many people who do not like this movie. And I know people who just straight up hate this movie. Now, I always say that hate is too strong of a word, so I don't really like using it, like, for any type of art. Like, for somebody, like, that's fine. As twisted as that may sound. Like, yeah, no, I fucking hate that guy. Yeah, that's fine, but, like, don't ever say you hate a movie. Like, unless you, like, there's really nothing to nothing to like about it. And it's so fun. It's like the people who care for, like, animals more than human beings, I guess. So we all got our quirks, I guess. But this movie is, of course, 2018's Ari Aster's directorial debut, Hereditary. And along with, what's the other movie that I was thinking of? Can't remember, but we'll circle back to it. I'm sure it'll pop into my head. But this really is when, like, oh, The Witch. See, that I didn't expect it to circle back that fast, guys. But indeed it did. So good. The night is young. The night is with us. So after The Witch and this movie, like A24 went wild. Yep, wild. They went wild. Like you've seen how much they've put out since then, and how popular they've been, and how big they've gotten. And just like I always say, you can't judge a movie on having the same director. You can't judge movies, from a production company. It's just simple as that. Just like you can't judge shows on a television station. Like everything on Channel 4 is fantastic, but that Channel 7 sucks. It's like, no, that's stupid. I judge everything, TV, movies, art, on a case by case basis. And I think that's an important thing to do. And so I hear a lot of people say that this movie, and like others like The Witch and Babadook was A24, right? See, that's how little I pay attention to, production companies. But those type of movies right around the mid, 2015, 2016, 2017, right, leading up to this movie coming out, we're getting a lot of hate. But they were also getting a ton of praise. And looking back on it, it's like, what do you think now in 2023? Looking back to, like, this is 2018, but I'm talking like The Witch was what, 2015? 2016? I want to say 2015. But whatever it is, in that little 4 year gap, how you might feel towards those films coming out of A24 in that few year area now versus when they were coming out. Because I heard so many people saying that this movie was one of the best movies, like horror movies ever. You see people put this on lists of the best horror movies of the 2000s onwards, of the 2010s, like all over the place. And that Get Out is another movie that also gets that same type of praise, which is a fantastic movie. It definitely deserves it. And then that's what I mean by going back and seeing how you feel about those films now that some years have gone by. Because when this movie first came out, I absolutely loved this movie. Loved it. Like, I thought all the praise that it was getting, and that's all I was hearing about it, was mostly praise. Didn't see a trailer, didn't see anything like that. This was long after I stopped watching trailers for anything. And I was just super excited, especially for a directorial debut from this new guy, Ari Aster. And I remember back then people saying the same exact thing. Like, this is one of the greatest horror movies I've ever seen and stuff. So I just had to see it. And I saw it. And did I agree with, like, all those crazy things that I was hearing? No. Not like it was one of the greatest horror films ever made. But it's certainly an excellent film. So much so that it would probably be in my top 10 of the decade, 2010s. Like, absolutely, and high up also. It would definitely be high up on that list. Like, maybe definitely in the top 5 even, I would say, because I absolutely love this movie. The few times I've rewatched it since, every single time I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of it even more. Now, the whole elevated horror bullshit, which I hate that so much. I hate that whole term. Just like torture porn, just like any of these stupid made up terms. I hate hearing them. And I hate that they even exist. I just pretend they don't even exist. But it it's stupid. Like, it's so stupid. Elevated horror, what? Because it has themes in it? Like, most movies do. Like, it's storytelling. Like, there are themes, and like in pretty much all storytelling. No, whether they're good themes and you get something, they're used effectively and explored, and you get something out of it, or just not handled well at all, that's a different story. But just like all the themes, though, for me in this movie of just like family dynamics and and mental illness and grief and loss, and just back to the family dynamic thing of just being terrified of, like, that mental illness in your family, and like passing it on to a kid and like your child, or like, it's so full of all of that. And Aster just explores all of that so amazingly in this movie. Like, the fact that Toni Collette, like, I don't remember if she did win something eventually, but the fact that like, this movie Hereditary isn't like a, like, staple name, like movie name in most households, I don't get it. Because just for that alone, she should have gotten so much more attention. She should have won many, 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 many awards for her performance in this movie. Like, Colette is so fantastic in this movie. And it's not to take anything away from Alexx Wolf and Gabriel Byrne, which I think he is very underrated. And I was just talking about this with Lauren, when we were talking shortly about this, about Gabriel Byrne, that he is fantastic in this movie. And that's not really talked about a lot. Like, he does a great, great job in this movie as well, and it's taking nothing away from Colette at all. Like, she is the spotlight. She's in the spotlight. She's the shining star most of the time, most of the scenes. But man, when Gabriel Byrne is there and takes over and is in charge of a scene, oh, he kills it. And just so many great things in this movie. So let's discuss 2018 Ari Aster's excellent directorial debut, which he follows up with just another fantastic film with Midsommar, and talk Hereditary. Now, first thing, well, as I start this all the sound design is phenomenal in this movie. All the directing is excellent in this movie. All the just attention to detail with certain things. The whole atmosphere is phenomenal in this movie. Like, if you ever want to feel that, excuse me, that if you ever want to feel just like suffocated, like this movie suffocates you. Like, it really does. And especially if a lot of the themes explored in this movie work for you, which should be most people, because I think most of us have experienced grief and trauma and loss of some kind, like in our lives. Now, of course, I mean, everything isn't going to work for everybody, and that's obviously 1000% okay. I say that on the channel all the time. But the whole talk about the whole like subtext here on mental illness, and it's not even like subtext, it's like pretty like directly spoken about at certain times, and like just it's the whole thing with the family dynamic and them and the worry of mental illness in in your family, like continuing on from you if you're mentally ill, like that might not hit for some people, and I get that 100%, but it does hit for a hell of a lot of people. Like, I know that. Like, it hits for me. Like, I've said it on the channel, I've suffered from depression and anxiety and stuff for longer than longer I've been alive with dealing with it than without it. I don't know why it was so hard to like word that. Probably because it's 1:30 in the morning and I am buzzed and we are recording a podcast. That's probably why. But yeah, the score is absolutely fantastic in this movie too. Just it's very eerie whenever they do like as a musician when you play like a note, then play the next semitone, like kind of like in Absurd from Joe D'Amato. Since we just watched that as the mystery movie of last week or the week before that, something like that, and same type of sound as the theme in this, like the main score theme in Hereditary, but it works. It's so effective. It works so well. It's so creepy as it usually is when you. I mean, the Jaws theme is one semitone. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, so many scores and pieces of music use that. And they use it for a reason because it's very fucking effective. And it really adds to the suspense here. And I love how all these, like a lot of these scenes in the house are shot like they're like in a dollhouse. Like just like how we get that amazing intro shot when we're going through the dolls, like the miniatures and stuff like that in her office, and then we go into the son's room and and the father walks in. Come on, that is a brilliant shot. Like that reminds me of Kubrick a little bit, but like that is such a great shot. I adore that. Yeah, that's right. If you didn't think when I saw that shot at the beginning of this movie when I first saw it that I wasn't like filled with glee, like hoping that all right, this has promise that everyone praising this movie is right. Oh, I love that shot so much. Like seamless. It looks so good. Now, right off the bat, let's also say the whole clicking thing that Charlie does is so creepy. Like, that is so weird. It's so creepy. I love how it's used here. I love how it's used when she's alive, and I love how it's used when she's dead of sorts, because there's a lot left open to interpretation here in this movie. So I definitely want to hear your guys' opinions down in the comment sections, all right, down in there. So let's bring on, just for weather real quick, my good friend who's always here every episode, Mr. Meatwad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. How you doing, Meatwad? Oh, Chuchi, I'm doing good, man. How you doing? I'm good, Meatwad. What do you got for us for weather out there? Since again, it always only applies really here to New York, and I don't even think you're in New York. No, I'm not in New York. I'm over in Toronto, Canada. Toronto, Canada. Nice. I've never been, but oh, it's beautiful, especially when you go downtown. It has all the dancing. Okay, okay. So, what's the weather here in New York? Well, this is about 37 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about 3/4 of a full moon. And I got my dog here. His name's Ham Banana. Ham Banana! I gotta go. Alright, man. Take care. Bye. Okay. My God. Oh, he's never not a treat. So, I think it's very interesting also that Ari Aster came out, I think, and said that he never planned for this movie to be a horror movie. He very carefully pitched it as a family drama or family tragedy. And I think that's interesting because I remember he said a little bit after Midsommar that he didn't want to make it, he wanted to get out of horror. And now apparently it's not going to work out that way. We got a movie coming by him, I think, right? If I remember correctly. I don't keep up on much news because I don't want to get spoiled. But I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that. But I thought that was very clever when I first read that or heard that. I forget if it was an interview like with him on YouTube or if it was like an article. But I thought that was very interesting because it kind of sounds like he doesn't like being labeled a horror director, which is interesting because a few directors that I like love and adore are usually the same way, that they're not held as horror directors. So that's interesting. Yeah, don't remember if I said it, but I love how each like some of the scenes they just look like they're filmed like they're in a dollhouse. Just like we see a bunch of at the beginning and all the miniature models and stuff that she works on. Like I absolutely love that. It really makes it feel like again like maybe I did say it, I don't remember, but like if you feel boxed in, and that's how it really makes you like relate to her mindset, like and just how crazy she's starting when she starts really losing her mind and the grief and the trauma she like starts feeling. It really is so effective and it feels so contained and you feel stuck in that room with them, like with this family going through what they're going through. And I love how he utilizes this in this movie and he does the same thing in Midsommar, which is something he's excellent at. Yeah, so in case that didn't make sense, I was saying like Annie, the way that he felt that Aster films this like a lot of scenes in this movie, very boxed in, very like suffocating, like I said earlier in the video. Like yeah, like it you feel like you're in that room with her or with the family here suffering throughout this movie. And he utilizes that same thing in his next movie, Midsommar, like using certain scenes that make you feel stuck in the moment with the characters, like stuck in the actual location with the character or characters, and it's something that he does amazingly. Yeah, I was trying to find the words to describe it perfectly. That works better. Man, the scene when Annie is leaving her her workshop room and she looks after she shuts the light, she looks into the corner and she sees her mother. It's so creepy. And like the first time you see this, like it takes your eye like a second, like not even a second, but like real, like a split second to notice. And once you do, it's so creepy. And it's so effective. It's so effective at just creeping the fuck out of you. And it's still creepy every time I see it. Like every time I watch this movie, and then just her reaction, like especially because you have the great score playing in the background, and then as soon as she flicks the light back on and the mother image disappears, the you see how she is, and she's relieved, and the music turns right off. But oh, that's so good! Like that's such a great scene. I knew that this would be a hard movie to talk about too, because as I'm watching it, I keep like thinking of things relating to the movie, like tangents, but they're still on topic for the most part, and trying to talk about that while seeing shit happen on the screen is very difficult to like stay on board with, especially when poof poof. So apologies. This is still an experiment. So how fucking creepy is Charlie? Like really? The first time I saw this movie, and I'm sure when everyone saw this movie, she's such a creepy kid, man. She is such a just I don't know. I can't say anything too bad, but I mean I'm sure they dressed her down for this role, the actress, right? I hope so, because if not, then I should feel bad, but I still wouldn't. But she's just real hard to look at, and she's just so strange. And having I like a lot of throughout this movie also that we don't really know if it's Payman or Charlie taking over, like trying to take over Annie and then eventually Peter. Is it Charlie or is it Payman? Because I'm pretty sure that it's just Payman, and that her death was just part of, like Charlie's death was part of the whole ritual or whatever that the cult had to do in order to get Payman into Peter. Right? So let me know if that's how you feel as well. Because I've heard a lot of different actually, like interpretations over the years. And that's one of them. Like, what's Peter, and I mean, what's Charlie, and which is Payman, and was Charlie ever there, and all of that. I don't think Charlie ever was. I think Charlie just died in the way that she was supposed to die. Like, think of it as like a human sacrifice had to be made, and or two human sacrifices had to be made, or three, or whatever it is. Because yeah, they killed the three of them, but whatever it is, make it that, and then I don't know. I just love that whole idea. That idea of just not fully knowing what the characters are dealing with, like from time to time. Like if they're dealing with the ghost of Charlie, or if they're dealing with this demon thing Payman, this cult figure, this cult god that these satanic cults have been following for who knows how long, and how crazy these people are. There's a lot of great stuff in that. Okay, so here's a topic that I was probably tried getting on like 3 times in the last 20 minutes, and then just my brain went down another sidetrack and just started making no sense. But the whole argument I've heard in the horror community since this movie came out, I mean long before that, but just specifically around this movie, is that people who don't like it don't like slow burn horror, which is, I think, another stupid fucking term. Slow burn horror. What the hell is that? It's just you're just describing the pace of a movie. Like that's it. Like this, it's another stupid term, just made up to, I don't cause divide. Just like any type of term is usually made up for, but it's never a good reason for that, for torture porn, anything. They're all just made up stupid terms that, when you really think about it, it's like, how many people just like one type of movie like that, one type of horror, slow burn, quote unquote, or regular movies, regular horror movies. Like, I don't get what it means. You know what I mean? Like, it goes back to the whole elevated horror thing. Like, what? Because we're dealing with themes that are a little more explored, like, than the average movie, and like take a little more focus in this, or a little bit more of the focus in the story than normal in a horror movie. That makes it elevated. Like, I don't get how any of that, excuse me, works at all. Like, I think it's all stupid. And if someone like knows what the hell all that is supposed to even mean, like elevated horror versus regular horror, like, if I watch a horror movie and I enjoy it and I think it's a great movie, then I think it's a great movie. If I think it's a piece of shit, it's a piece of shit. Like, that's it. Like, there's no like saying like, oh, this is only for a certain. I mean, I can see that, like saying it's for only certain types of horror fans, like people who like genres and stuff. But then this, it's kind of sounds. I think the issue with the whole elevated horror thing, I think it makes people feel like they're being judged on their IQ or their intelligence. That's what I feel like it is. This is why they call it elevated horror. I mean, like, oh, why? Because just because we like, the regular horror, like quote unquote regular horror, that we aren't smart enough to understand the, the heavy themes and stuff going on in your elevated horror. That's what I think it boils down to. But you heard a lot of that when this movie came out, and you still hear it, and you've heard it way before this movie. But like, just sticking to what I remember personally about this movie coming out, like, that's what you were hearing about, that, about the witch, about, I don't know why I can't think of others right now, but there are others for sure. You don't, you trust me, and you trust Meatwad. How about him? Oh, you trust us? That's what I'm saying. Okay, good. Thanks, Meatwad. All right, cool. So yeah, believe me, the scene of Charlie cutting the bird's head off, that's so fucking disturbing, man. Like, that really is. As she's eating like her candy bar, and then her whole nut allergy, that feels a little manufactured. I mean, we'll talk about that when that scene comes, but like, it does feel a little forced. Like, they seem to not give a fuck about her allergy at all anyway. In the very beginning, before they went to the funeral, like, they ask if she has her EpiPen, but then when she goes off to the party, like, she doesn't give her like an EpiPen, like give it to the brother Peter, give it to, give Peter one, give Charlie one, nothing. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they seem like they care more about her peanut allergy, that they would at least give one or two to Peter and Charlie, or vice versa, one or the other, doesn't matter, just so they have one or two, just in case. But the fact that they don't do that, it's a little weird, and it's very plot convenient that that's what triggers off pretty much the whole plan of the cult. So finally, with after anything that I was really trying to say, most of the points I was trying to make, with that over, um, with the movie, so we have Annie and her family, and Annie's mother just passed away, and I like the whole opening scene with her like talking about her mom at the wake, or whether it's the wake of the funeral, and man, just the way that she just, her whole performance in this movie, I mean, of course, is excellent, but just the way that she conveys pain on her face is absolutely brilliant. and her whole speech about her mom and how, estranged they were for the most part, and her whole speech there during her opening scene is so good. And then she ends up going to a grief, like an AA meeting, but for grief and trauma sufferers and stuff like that. And she ends up meeting her friend. What the hell's her friend's name? I'll know in a second. But she's a great character. I really like the woman that she meets, the one who we find out, knew her mother and worked for the cult. I think she's an awesome character. I love that actress too. I've seen her in a few things, and I always forget what else I've seen her in until I see her in one of those other things. Like, it's really weird. But she does such a good job in this movie too. I want to say Jean. I think I want to say Jean. So maybe let's go with Jean. But like the whole scene with Annie talking and introducing herself to this group, fucking fantastic. Like, I can't say enough about the acting in this movie. Like, that is one of the shining things that this film has going for it and always did. Besides a whole bunch of others. The whole thing with it being a slow burn too, I do understand where that distinction is made though. Despite me saying that I don't like, that it's judged like that either. It's same as like quality, or how smart you have to be, your IQ for elevated horror. But what I love about that whole discussion, that other side of it, is that I understand to an extent. Like, yeah, like slow burn horror. You mean like Halloween is a slower? I mean, basically, I feel like they mean like older older movies or films nowadays that are like older films. Like when back in the 60s, 70s, I mean, as you go back, but look at horror movies in the 60s and then the 70s and the 80s and stuff. Everything got a lot faster and faster. Same as life, basically, as time went by. So, I mean, you look at Psycho, and then you look at whatever run of the mill movie that came out this month in the horror genre. And you have a young generation. Yeah, then it's going to be harder for them to relate to Psycho. Like when they're used to pretty much just, today's speed of movies. And that's fine. Like, that's why movies like The Conjuring and Insidious, and I don't want to harp all on James Wan. I love the Saw franchise, but like a lot of films, like let's just say like 85% of horror movies, I feel like mainstream that like are in theaters and stuff like that, or released a physical release and stuff, qualify for like the regular quote unquote movies, like the for fun ones versus the slower paced ones, the ones that are supposed to build and build, the ones that are supposed to make you think as time goes on. So I do understand that, and I do love those type of movies. I love quote unquote slow burns. I think it's just a stupid topic and a stupid idea and term. Same with torture porn. Same with, I thought of another one the other day. Can't remember what it was, but that one, it's fucking stupid too. All right, that one's dumb also. I love the like when the score kicks in, and then when you see Charlie in her room and you see the ghost or whatever the hell it is, like the light, which is I guess Payman, right? That's what I'm guessing, unless it's the grandma, because I was never sure of who this initial, the initial light that Charlie sees is. Is it Payman? and then like she dies, and the cult pushes it pushes payment to go into to Peter. I don't think that makes sense. But like, doesn't he click also? We'll talk about this more at the end. But as I go along, I want to note some of these things in my mind now that I'm thinking about it and really like really kind of like dissecting it while I'm watching it. All the arguments too in this movie, which I've heard some people complain that there is a lot of. Yeah, you could see it that way, but I mean, you could say that for sure. But like I said earlier, he basically pitched this as a family tragedy. It's supposed to be about family drama. It's not really a full on horror film. It's just like a family drama turned into absolute fucking hell. Like, crazy shit happens afterwards. And that's what differentiates the two. And I love the scene when Charlie goes and she's walking into the woods, like on the property, like outside the house, and she sees, I'm going to go with Jean until I get a confirmation, but I'm pretty sure it's Jean. I've seen this movie a few times. But and she looks and she sees Jean with the fire circle around her in the field or like in the grass. That looks awesome. That is such a cool shot. I adore that. Then Annie comes out and chases Charlie upstairs. But then I love how Charlie also, like when she sees Jean, she clucks and wait. Let's see if I can do it better. Let's try it a few different times. Let's see how we can get it. All right. I think that's good enough. But it's so effective. I love that sound. Another awesome shot when Annie puts the little doll of her mother in the doorway of her bedroom with her and Peter. Not Peter. Why can't I can never remember Gabriel Byrnes' character's name in this. I don't know why I can never remember his name. It'll come to me, but damn, I can never remember his name, and he's just so freaking good in this movie. And so Peter, this is what I was saying earlier with the EpiPen and stuff, that they don't give them any EpiPens or anything like that when she's going to a high school aged party with her older brother who just wants to smoke pot with the hot chick. Like that's all he wants to do. And I love how he just goes up to her and he's like, "Hey, you smoke? I got really good weed." And like, and then she's like, "Oh, my friend's got a bong," and they walk off. But then she goes up, Charlie, and she goes and eats the cake. She don't ask nobody. She's 13 years old, right? Isn't that how old she is? She doesn't know how to ask. I mean, yeah, she's an unusual kid, but like still, she doesn't know to ask anybody, to ask whoever's making the cake or anyone whose house it is. Like, is there nuts in there? I can't have nuts. I'm allergic. Or nothing is said about that. That's why I feel like it's very manufactured feeling of what kicks off this whole plan. Because how'd they make this happen? Like we know they had the deer or whatever go in front of the road, and the dead animal carcass that they have to swerve out of the way of, and it decapitates Charlie, which is so far fetched too. But we'll get there. But this whole thing here, like she doesn't, the fact she doesn't have an EpiPen on her, if not multiple, from her mom, or that Peter doesn't, and that she doesn't ask first, knowing that she has a bad allergy to nuts, is all ridiculous. Like, as much as I love this movie, that is stupid to me. Like, it just feels very rushed, very forced to get them out of there, to get the decapitation shock scene. Now, I'll get the negative out of the way just before I blow the hell out of the scene. But was anyone really surprised that she was going to lose her head Charlie, like in this scene. Like I as soon as she's like choking and stuff, she's in anaphylactic shock, and she starts getting the window down. And as soon as she puts her head out the window, I said, "Oh, she's getting decapitated." Like right, like I don't think there was supposed to be a big surprise, but like I feel like sometimes when I watch this, I feel like he meant it to be a bigger surprise than it turns out being. Like it's pretty obvious. It's like any time in a horror movie, if I see somebody put their head outside of anything that they're inside of, or inside of anything that they're outside of, or any limb for that matter, I'm assuming that that is going to get chopped off. Like every single time. So as soon as I saw it, I said, no, she's losing her head. And again, like, this is so far fetched. Like, they'd have to what? They'd have to, like, measure where to drop the deer and how fast on average he would be going, which would be fast as shit because of her being, having to get to a hospital. So let's put the deer here that's this distance away from the pole so that he'll turn at the right time to swerve for the hitting the deer so that he'll hit her while her head is perfectly for the plot outside the window at that point. Like, come on, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so out there that this would ever work. This is never working as a plan. This is like 1 in 1 billion that this would work ever. But with that out of the way, those two things there, I love how this scene is shot. It's shot so well. It really is tense, man. It's really just like and then once you've seen it, you're rewatching it, you know it's coming, and just waiting for it to come. But then once you hear that hit, like you really feel that, like when her head hits that pole, you could feel that. Like it's the sound design is so great in this movie, but the way that they recorded that sound of her neck or of her head snapping off, her neck breaking and snapping off, awesome. Like it sounds so creepy. And then I would probably be like Peter. Like, what do you do? That's your sister. Like, and that's when this really starts hitting home for a lot of people, I think, in this movie. Once this happens, this is like one of the most pivotal scenes in the movie. It's like, yeah, we've been dealing with death for what, 35 minutes or so with the death of her mom. But it's Charlie's death here that really hits home. And then we have Toni Collette's scene, man, the next scene that really just hammers it home and it just nails it. Just some of the best acting in a scene in a horror movie for me of the 2010s. Like, absolute amazement when I first saw this movie and saw her performance, but especially this scene when Pete. But I'd be like Peter, like, what do you do? This is your sister. Her head was chopped off. Was like what? She was decapitated with me driving. I would just get up in a trance, in shock, and walk and lay down, just like he does. Then she goes out, and the quick shot of her head is so fucking creepy, man. With the bugs all over Charlie's head. Oh, that's so eerie. It's so creepy. Oh, it's so effective every time. I then just her on the floor, just with Gabriel Byrne. I can't think of his fucking name still, but he's like like holding her, and she's just like, I wanna die, like that is such a brilliant fucking scene. That is so amazing. The way that she could pull all of that out of her for that scene right there, for all her acting in it. What a phenomenal performance. And I'm going to keep saying that throughout this movie because, god damn, does she just knock it out of the park. Because I don't remember seeing her in many other things since um The Sixth Sense, maybe. like in any type of big role. And she doesn't have a big role in Sixth Sense either. But maybe I just haven't seen stuff that she's been in until this. But I remember she was. I like her as an actress. That I thought she was a very good actress. But damn, like she destroys it in this movie for me. And just like the very first shot of the movie after the text, where we see the treehouse where Charlie used to sleep with the red light, the heat lamp, the red light heat lamp. That's hard to say. Say that 3 times, fuckers. Yeah, get back to me. But now we see Annie up there sleeping because she misses her daughter so much and she wants to be so close to her daughter. But then when you go back through this movie and rewatch it after a first time or a second time, like you start to notice more and more things, obviously, like with any movie. But I wonder if that has something to do with the cult and their influence as well. Like, is Annie just sleeping there because she feels like she wants to be where Charlie would be, which is sleeping there because they always yelled at Charlie not to sleep there, and that it gets cold at night, and she says she's fine. So now Annie's sleeping there. Is it just Annie, like, loss and feelings of grief for her daughter? Or is it more than that? Is it the cult somehow, or the, Payman, the spirit of Payman, kind of influencing her to, like, the same way that he influenced Charlie, if he did, or if the cult did? Like, there's a lot of stuff that's left open, as I said. So I'm gonna try to remember as many of these questions as possible near the end here. Joan. Joan, that's it. So I was off by one fucking letter. Or excuse me. It's been a few years. But Joan's whole conversation when she first plants herself in Annie's life, when she goes up to her and says that her son died and starts saying about that she was able to talk with him, and just the guilt that she feels, and like that's how she relates to what Annie's going through now, and trying to worm her way in a little more, saying, do you want to have coffee? Do you want to like come in with me? And Annie's very closed off to the idea at first. I love the scene with Annie and her husband. Just when he's awake, she's awake, and she, starts getting up and saying that she's gonna go outside. Well, he pretty much deduces she's gonna go outside and calls her out on it and says that she's not coming back in because she's taking the blanket with her, and she's just saying that she needs to sleep. And you can tell he can't sleep either. Like, this is, I love how seeing like how much divide goes up between the two of them and throughout the whole family after losing a member of their family. Like, it's, I can't imagine like what they go through in this movie, like emotionally, then like outside of that with all the cult shit like that they don't even realize is going on. But man, just the loss alone is terrible, and God, it's gotta suck so bad. Really cool when like Payman or the light, whatever it is, knocks over her paint onto Joan's number that she wrote down, or that Joan wrote down for her, and that leads her to seeking out Joan, calling her and going over to her apartment and her house and having like that whole little gray scene together. But that's another thing that it would rely on, like her even calling Joan. Like, how do they know that she 100% is going to call this woman? Like, yeah, I guess you can argue that just bank on her personality and just they would know, but like, or is there another way that they can control it? Like, none of that's ever really explained or like addressed at all. But that's leaving a lot up to chance right then and there for her to even reach out to Joan. So they're pretty lucky that she, like, everything that they had to rely on pretty much came true in this movie. And man, the whole scene when she's explaining her sleepwalking a few years ago to Joan about how she, woke up, like, came to after sleepwalking and woke up in front of Charlie and Peter and they were doused in fucking paint thinner, and that's so creepy. Like, that's so scary just to imagine, like, a family member doing that to you. Like, even if she says, like, she didn't mean to, like, do it or anything, like, there was no evil intention there, it was just sleepwalking, she couldn't control it. That's still fucking terrifying. Like, just thinking that somebody that's supposed to love you, and this is your parent, like, supposed to provide and take care of you, like, when you're, under 18 like this, but, like, always as family, to see them have to go through that. That's just such a scary thing and a scary scene, man. Like, that always freaks me out, that scene. All right. Well, breaking news now, a little bit before we just head into the third act here of our film. There have been sightings of savage ghost Sasquatches in the Pacific Northwest and in Northern California. This is so absurd to hear, but it is going on right now. This is 3:01 a.m. on the Eastern Coast, Eastern Standard Time here. But yeah, there is actual, actual, and shocking things. But let's get back to Hereditary. I love when Gabriel Byrnes goes upstairs to get Annie, and he says to her, she said, "Oh, I'll make the food." You say, "No." He said, yeah." He says, "No, I made the food, and you can either come down and have it or don't. I don't really give a shit." And just seeing the escalating tension here before just this insane scene at the dinner table, where just God, Toni Collette, excuse me, just absolutely destroys this whole scene. Like, this is probably the best scene in the movie for me. Like, horror or not, best all around scene. Like, geez, the acting from everyone is fantastic, but Collette just destroys here. Jesus, what an unreal fucking monologue, short monologue by her in this scene. Like, how she goes in and out of every emotion, it's absolutely it's captivating watching her. Like, how she just goes from anger to just like saying that I got to deal with you little, don't talk to me, you little shit, and just how she turns on the other side and saying, like, and I know you didn't mean it, and I know it was an accident, and I know, like, and I want to take that away from you, and like the way she goes back and forth between all these emotions, it's absolutely gut wrenching, and it's absolutely unreal acting. Like, this is the scene here that she should have nailed a whole bunch of awards for. Because goddamn, is she amazing in this. Now, this is where in the film I always consider appropriately the second half, because we're at the halfway part in the film itself, like at the hour mark. And we have the cute little scene of Joan planting herself again, in order to meet, run into, quote unquote, Annie, and in order to get her to the house to show her the seance and stuff, to be able to communicate with Charlie, is what she tells, Annie, that she was using it for her grandson, or her son, I think it's her grandson. And there's a few interesting things with that too that I will get to. Okay, like the way, first of all, that Joan sells it is fantastic. Like I said, the actress who plays her it does such a great job in this movie too. Like there's no one who does bad in this movie, and I really don't have many flaws for this movie outside of the whole cult, like how they got everything to work with a million different things that could have gone wrong. Like that is it's so ridiculous of a plan. Kind of like with Us. Like I think it's an excellent movie by Jordan Peele, but it has just that retarded, stupid explanation of the tethers that just takes the whole movie down for me. Like it's kind of like that, but it doesn't bother me for some reason as much in this movie. For some reason, I don't know why, but she sells it so well that like when she says like, no, I know what that smile is. I would have, I think, like she's saying, like I would think this is crazy too if someone told me that they did a seance and they heard their grandchild, which is yeah what she hears, her grandson. She really says it to her like, no, no, trust me, I get how crazy this sounds, but it's true. Like, just come over and show me, and I'll be able to show you, and I can show you it's true. And then that's a whole creepy scene in itself. But does she do this for Annie to go home later, right? And to perform the seance, that releases Payman or Charlie? I'm thinking just Payman. Like when I start like early on in this video, when I said that I think Payman is all there is throughout all of it. That Charlie isn't really here as a spirit, even though it does the same sound that Payman does. But I mean, and Payman and Charlie do. They do the same sound. So what she wants, Joan wants Annie to open, I guess this link between, if you will, for lack of a better word, between Payman and I guess it's always been Peter since the beginning, right? Because I think they said that they were going to try it with Charlie, but like because she turned out like when the sex of the baby was found out that it was a girl, then it wasn't going to work or something like that. I mean, it's been a few years since I've seen this. I was forgetting a few things here, but love all that. As in, like, so is it? Does the cult want her to summon Charlie to go into Peter, and then to weaken him to make Payman able to go in, or do they summon? Like, does Annie, by doing this seance, summon just Payman, and Payman tries to take over Peter, or Annie and then Peter, and that's it? And Charlie isn't involved at all? Again, thoughts, because they really do leave a lot to question, which I do like. But I wish they did leave a little less to question. I wish they like explained a little tiny bit more. Like it feels like it's missing just a little bit to fully convince me that this cult is capable of everything that happens in this movie. And that all the things they have to be so lucky for, millions of things that all have to come together. Like it would have sold it a little more for me. Man, the scenes of Annie driving home, and then she hears the clicking sound from that's what I want to know, Payman or Charlie, because Charlie could be around. Maybe that's what she did the seance for in her house, in Joan's house, and did it with Annie there, and now it's Charlie's ghost. But then when she does the seance, that's going to make Payman come? Or because Annie hasn't done the seance herself yet. So it can't just be Payman unless they summon them together or some shit. Like this, see what I mean? There's a lot of questions, so I'd love to hear thoughts. But I also love just how in this movie. There's so many things that are in the background, and that if you're not paying attention, then like you'll miss them. Like, and that's another thing that is mentioned when they talk about elevated horror or stupid other term and shit, slow burn. It's like they have scenes in both of those stupid divisions, like both of those categories, that like they don't explain as much and they don't hold your hand as much, which I get that too. But still, it's stupid terms. But I love the whole scene with her dreaming Annie, and she goes into Peter's room, and she sees like all the bugs and shit all over him, and then he wakes up and it's very Fulci feeling, like just like I guess most things would like up close on bugs feels very Fulci, like to me. But then like she's like in shock when she wakes up from sleepwalking, and Peter's like like freaking out because of what happened years earlier when she almost set her and him and Charlie on fire. Like I would be petrified if I was Peter, especially after everything that you've like argued with her recently about everything in the dinner scene and just how everything hasn't been right since Charlie died. Like, seeing her there, that must be so scary for him. And man, the way that Toni Collette says, "I never wanted to be your mother," and she like puts her hand up over her mouth. That's amazing. Something about that that hit so hard. Like, do you imagine like being her and like saying that to your son? Like, oh man, that really hurt. Like that hits when she says that line. Like she is such a great fucking actress, and especially in this film, like she kills it with this. But none of that matters because that was a nightmare. But then is when she starts. You hear her reading the words off, like downstairs. Then she goes to wake up Peter and her husband. Stephen. That's what I thought. That's what I thought his name was, but I didn't want to say it in case it was wrong. But I thought of Steven. But then I was thinking of Blair Witch with Tristan and her saying Steven. And I thought, like, oh no, that's Blair Witch too, I'm thinking of. But yeah, so Steven is Gabriel Byrnes. Duh, JT. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it that Steven is a psychiatrist. So, I mean, from Annie's point of view, like, she's begging Steven to, like, think outside the box and to think that she's not crazy. So like the odds are really stacked against her in this scenario because I mean he's a psychiatrist. Like he would recognize and see signs of severe mental illness just like her mother, which is an obvious theme that we and concept that we see covered in this movie a little bit. That she's just crazy like her mom was. And I love how they make it seem at some points throughout here that maybe she's just losing her mind. Like, it's another whole way to look at the movie that it's just excellent and just makes each rewatch of this movie just so much fun every single time. But man, seeing their reactions when they all have their hand on the glass and then it slides away from them is priceless. Like they are in disbelief and don't know what to think. Then like they just don't want. Like Steven wants nothing to do with this. Like he's just like we're done. Like just and all the arguing between them is just fucking brilliant. Like it feels so realistic. It feels like a family in peril. Like if ready to implode from themselves. Like it's so scary. It really is a scary film for me. All right. As terrible as Peter's, cry is at the end of this scene. It's so bad. His crying. Like, come on, that was the best they can do? Like, they did they just do one take, or is that like his best of 10? Because I don't know, man. That's so like I don't know. That's just one of the things I can nitpick about this movie, and it's that. So I mean, it you could see there's not that many big things I can hate on. So, but that's one of them. Like Jesus, what a stupid cry. But everything before that is absolutely excellent. When she seemingly gets what possessed by Charlie, right? And she's saying, "Mom, Mom, like what's going on?" And they're all both freaking out, saying like, stop it, I don't like this." So then like Peter starts to tear up and cry, and Steven's freaking out, and then he has to throw water on her, and I love just how quickly she turns back around, and she's like, "What the hell was that for?" Something like that. That's brilliant. But is that Charlie taking over her? Because then at the end we do see, Annie possessed by either Payman or Charlie. But I'm guessing it's Payman because then we see the scene in class with Peter, and he looks in the reflection, and he sees his reflection look back at him and with like an evil grin on it, and that's supposed to be Payman. I absolutely love when she calls, or he calls Annie, Stephen, and says about like I have a son to take care of, and she's like, "What does that mean?" And he just hangs up on her, and then she has to call back and leave a message to say like don't you hang up on me again, and like really like try to sound furious, and she is furious, but I love that, just like she has to get the last word in, and I know many people like that. And I don't know if it's intended or not, probably is. I mean, it's probably been talked about somewhere, but I love all the, like I said earlier, the things with the doll houses and stuff and the miniatures, but also how it kind of symbolizes how people can be like a doll controlled by their emotions, or their mental illness can control them like dolls, like puppets. Like, don't know if that was intended, but you can make a little argument there. And then Peter having his version of what Annie experienced earlier in the film, seeing her mother. He's laying in bed and he sees, what's her name? Charlie, in the corner. And it's creepy too. Like, the way that Ari Aster uses like the lighting in his films, he really pays attention to lighting. And he really does a great job lighting all his scenes, because just seeing like how faintly you could see like Charlie's face, but then like how it rolls off her head and becomes a ball. I mean, I don't know why the ball was on top of whatever that was, but like, but whatever. So like it makes sense. And then like look in Midsommar, like with all his use of light, like it's all daytime. Like well, the whole time after they get to I always forget, Switzerland or Sweden. I want to say Sweden. Could be wrong, but who cares? We'll talk about that another time. But he's phenomenal with his lighting in his movies, and I think that makes a lot of the scenes in this movie very effective. And then we have Annie try to burn the book that Charlie was drawing in, and her arm bursts on fire, and she has to put it out, and the book is burning, her arm's burning, so she takes it out of the fireplace, puts it out. Later, we see her give it to Stephen and tell him to throw it in the fire. First of all, what a bitch, because doesn't she know that he's gonna burn? Or maybe she was just thinking that only she burns, like when the book does. Because I would assume from that, like, if it just happened, if I did just what Annie just did and threw it into the fire and I got lit on fire, I'm Annie now. I'm on fire. I would assume that whoever throws this book in the fire, probably in the family, is going to burst into flames. Like, that's what I would assume, right? Like, isn't that what you would assume? Not that anyone in the family who throws this book out, or anybody who tries to harm this book or burn it, is I'm gonna burst into flames. Like, why is she? It's like it kind of plays to her character because she is very egotistical at times too. But it's weird. So I don't know. Just another observation with that. And then very cool. I like how we get the scene with Annie knocking on Joan's door and no one being there, but then we get the pan out shot from the door and we see on the table like pretty much a recreation of what the scene in the treehouse at the end of the movie is. And then we go and see Peter see Joan in the background, just like Charlie saw earlier in the movie. And is he the only one who sees her? Like, and hears her? I guess. Like, it's like a cult thing. They never explain how anything in the cult works, so that's the thing. Like, you can't really hold it to any rules because we don't know any rules of this cult. But then he gets his little, Peter, and it's not the best. I mean, they could have approached it a little better, like kind of foreshadowing that he was going to be the one, like to finally put like Payman's spirit at rest, like in a final body, that he would be it. I don't know. They could have done a little bit better, but I mean, I like Joan, so it's cool seeing her. Yeah, so Joan just like shows up to Peter and just I love how she says like I expel you. And I'm like, Peter, get out. Like telling him get the fuck out. We got Payman ready for you. I don't know how I feel about the whole name of Payman either, but it is what it is. But then what? It was Annie when she was knocking on Joan's door. She noticed something to go look in her box. Is it the doormat that said Joni? Like the doormat for Joan's house? Is that what it was? That her mom made those or something? I think that's what it's supposed to be, unless I missed something. But I always thought that's what it was. That she like noticed something because they show a shot of the doormat. Always thought it was that. So I wonder if it really is or not. Who knows? But because of that, she Annie ends up looking through her mom's stuff and sees Joan, sees her with the necklace and stuff, and that they knew each other, were in this cult together, and basically exposes everything that her mother was doing behind those closed doors on Saturday nights. And we also found out that this is where we find out when she's looking through the her mom's stuff that they they've been trying to summon this King Payman, and that he has to be in a male body, that he's a prince or some shit, like some ancient god or whatever, and he prefers to be in his female body. I mean, in his male body, not his female, his male one, right? He wants to be in the male body. All right, that don't sound right. Whatever. So interesting. So I'm guessing I remember that they tried the cult, right? They tried with Charlie, but she was a female. Or did they try with Annie? They tried with someone in the family, and it didn't work. They had a daughter or something. I think that was Annie's first pregnancy. So they were going to try with Annie's first kid. That might have been what it is. I'll find out, but that's what I remember. Damn, it's been a damn decent while since I've seen this. Like, I'm actually surprised. Like I said, I'm surprised I'm forgetting some of these things. Oh man, though, the stench that it must be up in the attic, like with her mom's body there for these days. Oh, that's gotta smell so fucking bad. I don't know how many of you have smelled a body before, but it's not good. So Annie goes up and sees her mom's body with the. Was that her mom's body or Charlie's? I don't think that's the mom's. Yeah, because there was the grave was defiled. They called earlier, and just sees her decapitated body up there. And then we go and see the light of signifying Payman, King Payman, in what's his name, Peter's classroom, and I love that like weird ass like way that he shapes his hand when he puts his arm in the air right before like he starts smashing his face on the desk, and then he just freaks out and screams and dude, that is, you never outlive that. Like that is your reputation forever, like in school. Like Jesus, can you imagine going through this? Man, when Steven goes and picks up his son from school after he gets the call that is out of his outburst and everything, and that he's his eye and everything. Jesus, man, like when he starts breaking down at the light. Oh, that's gut wrenching. Like, and Jesus, he's so good, Gabriel Byrne. This whole movie, like they don't give him as many times to shine, like at all near how much Toni Collette does. But goddamn, he kills it in everything that he has of his own, or like that he's in charge of. And man, just this whole scene with Annie and Steven arguing with each other, and her just saying, "Please check the body in the attic," and just him accusing her, and because they were saying, he was getting the calls that the grave was being desecrated, and messed with. And all of that, just her whole pleads to believe her and like that she's not crazy. A plus plus. Like so tense, so atmospheric, so scary, so disturbing. And then just her, just like you want him to believe her because we've seen some shit, that he hasn't. But like both of their acting is just fantastic. Oh yeah, then also with she when Annie went up to the attic and found the body, they said they had the cult symbol that's on the necklace that Joan and Annie's mother and everybody else seemingly in the cult wore, and she mentions that to Stephen also. But yeah, man, I mean it's disturbing seeing her like just plead and plead and plead and like, please, like otherwise this isn't gonna happen to our son, and I gotta just, the book is linked to her, which I remember she thinks the book is linked to her, and that's why. But like still, I'd kind of think whoever throws this book of the fire is gonna get their ass burned. Like just seems like karma. You fuck with the book will fuck with you personally. But he, like, even though she's pleading so much, like he still doesn't believe her. Like he won't, and at first he won't do it, like just because she's delusional in his mind, which you can see that. You can see his point of view, absolutely. But man, and then she ends up throwing the book in the fire, and then he gets set on fire. So what the fuck is that? Like, what is that about? Like, I'm always thinking that, like, once they set up that rule earlier, and said, like, they didn't really say the rule, but like I was saying, if she gets the fire, the book thrown in the fire, then she started burning herself. So she figured that anyone who throws the book in the fire, she's going to burn because it's linked to her. Those were her exact words, that she's linked to it. So then what the hell is her throwing it in the fire? Why is it burning him? Is it just like, it's like Payman? Like, is he controlling this? Is he just being extra dick asshole? Because that's fucked up, man. Like, don't do that. Are you serious? And the following scene, though, is so creepy and is so amazingly done. It's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie too, and I'm sure you all know what that is. I mean, it's when Peter wakes up, and you just see, you don't see it at first the first time you see this, and especially if you saw it in theaters, like you're looking everywhere and it's dark and Peter's getting up, and you're looking, there's more light on the right, so you're looking to that, then you're adjusting and you're looking, and then you see Annie's body just like spider walked, like Spider Man on the wall in the corner of like the ceiling and the wall above him. That is so great. I love that. I love when you have to find the terrifying thing yourself. Like where it doesn't hold your hand, it doesn't point it out to you, it doesn't say "be scared now." There's no jump scare. That's what I love right there, and that's something that also gets brought up, like I said, with slow burns and stuff. It's in both. It's in all types of movies. You can mix them and match them, but it's so effective here. And then how she just crawls out of the room, like on the wall. That is so creepy. Like, damn, is that creepy? And then the rest of the ending of this movie just fucking, it's like a car throwing on nitrous oxide and like just the maximum boost all the way until the end. It's relentless. Like just with Peter coming downstairs and like, you see the naked cult member in the shadows and you see more and more of them like as the scene goes on, and then Annie up on the ceiling again. So creepy, man. Like it, and the score, the it's there's so much atmosphere in this whole movie, but especially this ending 15 minutes or so. Jesus Christ, it's so fucking scary. Like there's not many movies that like at all really that I can feel scared. And I don't with this either. But like it comes damn close. It's like, man, imagine like if I was in this situation, I'd be terrified. Like absolutely. And it does such a great job of that. And then Annie chasing him, and then for the first time I saw her head, him go up the attic and then shut the door, and her upside down with banging her head over and over again so fast on the attic door. That blew me away. I was like, what the fuck is going on, man? And I loved every second of it. And if you're one of those to think that there's not enough male penis, well, I mean, of course, there's got to be male penis. There's not enough penis in horror movies, and there's so much female nudity. This movie's got you covered in the ending, man. There's a lot of penises. But goddamn, man, Peter's whole screaming, "Mommy, please, please don't, mommy!" And he's like this grown like teenager, but it shows how fast you'll revert back to your most comfortable place, and that's being, be your child, having your parents in the most depraved, like fear-inducing situations, even though it's his own mom running after him. He doesn't really know what's going on completely, which makes it even more scary. But then when he's up there and he sees all the bugs and stuff like that, and then when he sees Annie hanging from up in the attic, when he looks up and she's like from a beam and she's cutting herself slowly with the fucking like barbed wire, excuse me, or piano wire, was more like it. That is such a disturbing scene. That is so, it's kind of hard to look at for me a little bit. Like it really is. Like, just something about her stare while she is sawing herself is so fucking creepy. So excellent job, Ari Aster, for that. But man, just the whole way that this finale is filmed, with her buzzing, like with the sawing of her neck, and then he sees the three cultists, and one of them like waves, and and they're all naked, and he just you hear ding, and a clock, and he just jumps out the window. And then that's when I'm assuming Payman takes him over, and he sees Annie's headless corpse float into the treehouse. Then we see as he goes up there, they call him Father Payman from now. I mean King Payman, and it's a beautifully shot. The ending here with just in the treehouse with the lighting and just like the slits of light every like few feet on the wall of the inner walls of the treehouse, and I'm assuming that's Joan, right? Who like puts the new like crown on top of his head and says that it's King Payment, and just all the way that that's set up, like with the creepy ass cult members naked, like on their hands and knees. Like, hey Bob, I got to play this role in the Hereditary. What were you? I got to have my ass in somebody else's face, and somebody's ass in front of mine. Oh, cool. But then like I guess is now he's King Payment. Okay, but then she also calls Pay, Payman Charlie when she first starts speaking to Payman, as in the body of whatever the fuck his name is, Peter. Yeah, it's late, but yeah, you could tell that. But can you also look at it as like, is this what he means by this? Is like they tried summoning King Payman, and they ended up summoning Charlie. So it was their plan to, have Charlie get decapitated and die and stuff. So then they can use Charlie's spirit or whatever to merge or bring out Payman into her brother. His body is the host because they call it Charlie. And it makes sense that it was making the cluck sounds and stuff throughout the movie. So is like they say that we gave you like your female host, your female form or something, but then now we give you this male host. So he wants to be in his male body, but I'm guessing it's still Charlie's spirit that's like merged with Payman, and he's one of the eight, uh, you know, whatever guards of hell, fucking gods of hell, Satan's helpers, whatever, and that's all they really tell you. So I mean, I like that they leave a lot to just your imagination, and like I'm sure like there's things I've glossed over watching this that like if you really like nitpick or like watch like videos on it, like breaking down certain mysteries in the movie, I'm sure there's like stuff that's been figured out. But all right, guys, Hereditary. That was interesting, and it's definitely a fantastic movie. Like every time I watch it, absolutely love it, and I can goddamn like the acting, directing is stunning in this movie. The atmosphere is just brilliant. Like all the themes throughout of just like I said, like family dynamics and mental illness and inheriting traits from your parents or family members, and all of that is just so excellently handled. And this is definitely in my like definitely would be in my like top five top that's my rewind button. Definitely in my top 50 horror films of all time. Probably pretty halfway or so ish. But that's a list I'll probably never do because I don't know if I could do like 25 or 50 greatest horror films of all time. That's too fucking hard, man. Like that's way too hard. But all right, guys. So happy to get another one of these out there. I'll probably get another one out by the afternoon or something like that. But like I said, I'll see how I feel. I'm feeling not too bad. I'm just like sneezing and congestion, shit like that. So thank you for joining me for another episode of the After Dark Horror Podcast in the Sack with JT. And I'm JT in the Sack. Take it.